Welcome to the Once and Future Authors podcast. I am Stephanie, and I am so excited today to be joined by author Deborah Franklin. You're going to absolutely adore meeting Deborah and hearing all about the Prayer of Jabez in the marketplace. Yes, you've probably heard of the Prayer of Jabez, but not in the marketplace. And our author writes, the Prayer of Jabez in the marketplace, how to make this prayer personal and intentional to see the territory of your business and enlarge. So many times we miss what God has for us because we don't make it intentional. We pray for so many things, but if we are honest, we have lowered expectations of a positive outcome. In this book, you will explore steps to make your prayer intentional and personal, but most of all, how to remove the pain. The pain in our lives, whether we want to admit it or not, tends to make us blind to how we are self-sabotaging ourselves from reaching our fullest potential. This book will guide you over a 10-day journey of self-actualization and guide in the direction of increasing your expectation level. When you expect the greatness, you will receive greatness. When you expect success, you will receive it. When you expect increase and expansion, you will receive it. Now start this journey and expect God to do it for you. Super excited to introduce author Deborah Franklin. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be in the room
Oh,
together
oh,
again.
I know. It doesn't happen often enough between the two of us. That's for sure.
Exactly.
But your energy is absolutely infectious. And I love that you also have a 30-day journal to go with the book.
Yes.
That is
And
so
that's
amazing.
exciting.
I do have to tell you something. And as I was reading for our listeners, my buzzword, every year I pick a buzzword.
Mm-hmm.
And the buzzword that I picked 2 years ago was intentional. And
Mm.
I liked the word so much, I kept it. So I'm still on intentional. And you are all about intentional. So I am here for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because if we are not intentional about the things that we do, we tend to miss the mark. We tend to hear from everybody and everything, but we still don't get to where we want to be because we're being intentional about everybody else, but not for ourselves. And we're
But
not reaching our goals.
you are so right. And some of us have a tendency to think that God is there for our personal life. And
Mm-hmm.
we should ask for things when it has to do with uh, health or spiritual growth, things like that. But you're bringing it to the business world, and I'm loving that.
Absolutely, because so many times it's like we think we put our faith in a box. Literally, we put it in a box and we close it up until, oh my God, I can't pay my light bill. Oh my God, I'm sick. Oh my God, somebody's coming after me. Oh my God, I made a mistake, and God, I just need you to get me out of it. Oh God, I got a court case. If you get this out of here, I'm gonna be the best thing ever. But we don't realize that if we partner with God with every aspect of our lives, it's in scripture. Everything that we do, the Bible even tells us there is nothing new under the sun. So could you imagine being intentional about what you're doing? And that doesn't mean you got to wear the WWJD bracelet. You don't have to wear the cross. You don't have to walk into every meeting with the Bible in your hand. You just have to know that praying before you go. Because I'm like, a quick intentional way, like, God, I need you to give me this contract because you know what we got to do next week. So this contract got to come forth. And so that's so simple. And you're like, well, you didn't say that was only like less than a minute. But I was intentional. I said what I needed. I acknowledged that I needed help, and I need you to go in here with me.
As you did. And you're right. That was like less than a minute, and yet we don't do it. We don't do it. And it's less than,
Exactly.
and
Mm-hmm.
it just changes the alignment of your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because when you are intentional, it's almost like being intentional about things forces you to be in alignment. Because if you say, God, I want to accomplish this, well, you know what? One thing that I have stopped doing, I stopped saying in 5 years, I want to do this. In 2 years, I want to do that. Because you never know that God, you might be out of the will of God. God might want you to do this tomorrow, or he
Ooh,
might want you to do it right now. And you talk about 5 years. God said, well, you want to wait till 5 years? I had the blessing for you now, but now if you want to wait, I'm gonna let you. I'm like, God, whatever your will is, let's do this thing. And sometimes your vision doesn't make sense. And we have to also remember that it doesn't make sense. And it doesn't have to make sense to anybody but you. You are the only person that it has to make sense to, because I'm a firm believer that when God gives you a vision, he will give you provision. It's just like the show that we were on. I said I wanted to do a reality show, but I didn't want a reality show where somebody was following me all the way around. I didn't know that this book reality show was going to fall in my lap. Like, come be a judge. What?
I didn't know either until I got that phone call. It was like, okay, I'm
yeah. And I'm like, you see how just wanting, it's almost like, they always talk about that law of attraction, but it really and truly is the prayer of Jabez. Because all you're doing is saying, no, I'm sorry. It's the prayer of Jabez, and also write the vision and make it plain. Habakkuk 2:2. Because when you write the vision, make it plain. If you go to verse 3, it says, tell the herald so they can run with it. So that means you had to have shared what you wanted and what your desires were to someone else. Because God didn't say that he was going to be like, the old movie that we used to watch when we was kids, where God, Moses, get up. We're talking to Charleston Heston. You might not hear that voice, but think about if you were to say something and God has already laid it on their heart to do something. And when you say it, it sparks with them and they're like, oh, I was planning to do this show. So would you like to be this? Sometimes you got to share your vision with somebody else because you don't know how this is getting ready to set up. Who knew that we were judges and now I'm on your show? It's like, it's just, you just never know, especially when you have already been intentional. God, I want some additional exposure for my book. God, I want some additional exposure for myself. You don't know how that door is going to open, but you just have to show up and be in the room.
Exactly. Could you rewind a little bit, just because I want to make sure our listeners heard those fabulous verses from Habakkuk. Just slow it down for a second.
I'm sorry. I get excited, y'all.
I know you do. And I was like, I want that on a poster. So just yeah. That was like the t-shirt verse. And I want that everyone heard you.
Absolutely. It's Habakkuk 2:2. Write the vision, make it plain. And Habakkuk 3, it talks about and share it with the herald so they can run with it. So in other words, you have to write the vision, make it plain, but then there's another step. You got to execute it. You can't just write it and then think, oh, I wrote it down, it's clear. But if you don't execute, how's it gonna come to pass? That's just like applying for a job. That's just like talking about, oh Lord, give me a job, give me a job. Oh God, I need a job. But you haven't filled out the application or even looked on to see who's hiring. So you have to write the vision, make it plain, and execute.
Absolutely. And I like that vision of tell the herald, because I tell people so often when it comes to setting intentions, share them. It's one thing to have it in your head, but when you actually tell someone, this is what I want to do, well, now you're kind of accountable. Like,
absolutely. And having somebody, and oh my God, this happened to me after I wrote my first book. And I had told somebody, I said, yeah, I'm gonna write me another book. And I didn't know that this person was literally gonna come to me every 6 months. Have you started that book? Have you done this? I had you don't know, because we were just having a general conversation. I didn't even know that this person was even paying attention to me. You just never know how those simple conversations, and that's why it also brings me back to one of my favorite things is that who's going to give you the blessing might not be the person that you expect. Who you're going to be accountable to might not look like who you expect, what you think that they're going to look like, because that person is still in my life. They might shoot me a message on social media. You got that next book ready? We ready? Have you done this? And I'm like, oh my God, you are really holding me accountable to this.
We do. And you didn't even ask for an accountability partner. But once we start sharing that vision with other people, yeah, they're going to hold you to it.
Absolutely. And especially when they see you have a spark. So I tell everybody, you have to have a spark for what you're doing. And then when you're passionate about it, you're intentional about it. When you have passion for things, people will see your passion before you even speak it out of their minds. Because, like, I have a passion for working with women, I have a passion for helping them reach their fullest potential. People see that, because even with my interviews, I was working with some people. I said, yeah, we looked at your stuff, we know that you like to help empower women. And I'm thinking, I never even said that. That's on nothing that I do. But thank you for that observation. So that means I'm doing something right.
Exactly. No, it's important not to just keep all this stuff bottled up. But that first thing, make make it plain. Make it plain. Make sure you figure out what's what and then share it. And then, like you said, execution. You're so right. So many people, I throw around a statistic all the time that 90% of the population wants to write a book. I believe that's true, because every time I walk into a room and I'm introduced, you're a publisher? I want to write a book. I have a book in my drawer. I have a book in my head. I started. Everybody wants to, but only this teensy percentage actually do, because they don't do that execution.
Yep, because they have all these journals, they have all these ideas. I feel like, they always say some of the best kept ideas are in the graveyard. Some of the best books that we have not read are in the graveyard, or sitting in somebody's drawer because, oh, I don't want to write this because I don't want nobody to steal my idea. Well, okay, that doesn't make sense, but okay, who knew? But it's time for us to tell our stories. Regardless if you're talking about your personal life, you may even have a fiction story. That fiction story, believe it or not, might be the story to help somebody to have a light bulb come on for them. Because so many times, because I was an avid reader as a child, and that was my escape, because I felt like an only child, but I wasn't, because we were so far apart. But I was the reader. So I would use books to go to different places, to go visit, exotic lands, and to look in the bedrooms of some people, So, it's like, you might be that next story, because I look at how kids now even take books, and especially the graphic novels, because it brings it up to life and puts it on that page, and it's helping them even see themselves and say, oh, this character chose to do this like this to get out of this situation, so I can do this too, or change their mindset. I even see that with my 4-year-old niece, which is hilarious, with the books and the words that she's reading. It's like she feels like, better not tell her she wasn't a troll, honey. She had her whole outfit on and was reading, reading about it, watching things. And so that's what we have to do. It's like, it helps with that fantasy world, but on the flip side, you're also learning.
Exactly. Well, you mentioned something about self-sabotage. You mentioned that in your description, and then you said about those wannabe authors who say, someone's going to steal my idea, I'll just leave it in a drawer. But in business, self-sabotage is such a huge thing, and I think a big problem for women.
And that's because we've been talked down to so much. You're only supposed to be barefoot, pregnant, 2.5 kids with the white picket fence, and the husband and the BMW in the driveway. I'm sorry, I'm single, never had kids, work for myself. But if every time I walked out, that's all I'm hearing, I'm afraid of success. I'm afraid of that light being shined on me. So and it's almost crazy. It's like you're right at the finish line, and then you do something to mess it up. Whether you say the wrong thing, or you don't show up for the meeting, or you start to thinking that, oh, they don't want to hear what I have to say. So then you come in with that dim light instead of that bright light. And it's like, you have it in you. You just have to trust what's inside of you in order to be seen in that room. And so it's a lot of times we just shrink within ourselves. And it's like, you want to call it low self-esteem, but I think it's part of low self-esteem. But some of it is just that we are afraid of the success. We are afraid of having to be in that room. And, I even had that said to me, there's like, Deborah, you have it in you, but the problem is you've seen too much of the background. And a lot of us in business have seen the cray-cray behind the scenes. You've seen the bad deals. You've seen the people being, cut off at the knees, and you just don't want to be a part of it. But guess what? You are the one that should show up and change the dynamic of the room and the dynamic of that situation. Because if you show up in your authentic self, you're going to accept what you accept. And when people see that you're not about the foolishness, they're not going to bring the foolishness to you. They're going to meet you with respect because of the way that you carry yourself.
You are absolutely right. And a lot of it is, you're talking about self-esteem, but there's also that cultural piece that you mentioned. You know,
Absolutely.
we've been told for so long what we should be. And, you know, even if we try to fight it, you can't listen to something for decades.
Absolutely. And you know, the crazy part about it, I don't care if you black, white, green, blue, purple with orange polka dots. Women are women. And we have been talked down to for so long. But what you don't realize is that we've been running the world all the time, because we're the ones doing the pillow talk and telling such and such, because you know what? They come to us for the advice. Y'all wake up. You smart. I'm just saying. You are smart. You are capable. You are beautiful. I don't care what you look like, whether you got red hair, blonde hair, black hair, brunette hair. I don't care if you bald headed. You are smart and beautiful and intelligent, and you have to walk with purpose. Now, and I hate to say it like this, but I got to say it. You know, even with the political climate that we are in, I don't care if you red, blue, purple, orange, whatever. We really do have to grasp hold to that this is a woman in a man's world that is really getting ready to change the game. Yeah. Because she's a woman that's not afraid to speak her mind. She's a woman that, even though she's multicultural, she does not play that card. She talks about the history of it, but she's also a woman. So that means she knows about, I'm not quite, yeah, she should know about the hot flashes. She should. She should. She is of the age to know about the hot flashes. Let's just be real. She knows about women's issues, even with the reproductive rights. We know that there are so many women, when we are in our groups, that say, I want to have children, but I can't. How can I do this? And I want to take it a step further. Can we talk about the adoption rate? Can we talk about why is it so expensive for me to adopt a child when there's so many children that are out there? I'm just throwing it out there.
You're right. You are.
I'm just, because a lot of times you could have homes for these children if the process was a little simpler. But I'm gonna leave that alone, because that ain't what we on here to talk about.
No, but you go all day. You put a toe in that water, and you are absolutely right.
Yeah.
You know, because it's too difficult and too expensive. And who's suffering? A whole lot of children.
A whole lot of babies. Because I know when I looked into it, I'm like, I'm single, and you want me to pay this much? And you want me to go through these many hoops? No. We're gonna have to figure something else out. And so, it's just, it's okay. That's a whole different story. We're not on here. What else, girl? What we supposed to be? Because I can go down that rabbit hole.
I know.
Yes, I can.
but women have to empower other women, and that's
absolutely.
And you are so right that any woman who is a self-made woman like yourself in a man's world, you had to climb further and farther to get to the same place.
Absolutely. And a lot, and the thing is, it took me, I'm not gonna say I just came out the womb like this, but it took me a long time to realize that I had to have boundaries, that I had to acknowledge my mistakes. I had to acknowledge my lack of exposure to some things. I had to acknowledge that, yeah, I grew up in a bubble. I had to acknowledge those things, because until you look at who you are truly as a person, you cannot go to that next level. Until you deal with the hurt that you have experienced, you're going to only experience so many levels of success. Yes. And when you get to it, you're going to question it the whole time. And that's when that imposter syndrome creeps in. But that's because you have not dealt with who you really are as a person, and it's like I've been dealing with a lot, because I lost my mom in November. And so that I kind of didn't really spiral, but I kept moving. I kept being busy. I got into workshops. I got into this. I got into that. And I never dealt with the grief. But I want to tell you, it's like when the light bulb comes on, you have to make a conscious decision to deal with what you are in and acknowledge. I had to acknowledge, girl, you ain't dealt with the grief. That's why you're tripping. That's why you having moments you can't figure stuff out. And so, and I'm using that as an example of what have you not dealt with that's making you not hit the mark that you want to mark? Or are you in this, let's say I like to call it that hovering pattern, so you can get that time to relax. You can get that time to build your energy up. You can be ready for when that door opens, because a lot of times I always say I look at those times when I'm trying to figure out, like, why the phone not ringing? Why I'm not going nowhere? Nobody called me. But then before I know it, that next week I'm now booked and I'm everywhere. And then I'm like, oh, well, God, I thank you for letting me have that little breath. Because now I got to go here, got to go here, got to go there. But we have to appreciate that downtime. And a lot of times we don't appreciate it, nor do we welcome it, because we're so used to being busy. We're so used to being on that hamster wheel. Right. That we need to embrace the downtime.
Yeah. And I am so glad that the younger generation, both men and women, are much more about personal boundaries and preserving self-care than the older generations ever were. We were just pedal to the metal, make it happen. And you know what? We need a little more self-care and personal boundaries. I think that people have that balance correct.
Absolutely. And stop saying, okay, ladies, stop saying that. Okay, I'm sorry, men. This is for the women only. Stop saying that your what you call it? What did you just say? Your self-care. Stop saying self-care is going to get your nails and your eyebrows done and your hair done. No, that's maintenance. That ain't self-care. That's maintenance. Stop getting it twisted. You're gonna have to do that anyway. You don't want your toenails hanging over your shoes. So you got to go get that done. Stop saying that that's self-care. Self-care should look like you just sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee. You just sitting in a park, just sipping on some tea. Self-care is taking that quick moment for yourself. Now, I'm not saying that you can't go to the beach and have some self-care. I'm not saying that you can't go to the spa, but don't be telling me it's a spa day, baby. Now that's some self-care, honey. I'm getting ready. And I'm speaking to me because I had a spa day when I was out of the country, and I was like, oh my God, I really do need to figure out how to incorporate a spa day. I need to start with, my goal is to start at least once a quarter. So since we're in the third quarter, I want to start the fourth quarter. I want to do one a quarter starting in the fourth quarter. And again, you see how I gave myself goals. And the reason why I gave it to the fourth quarter, because it's going to take me some time to do some research of where I want to go and how and what and who has the services that I'm looking for. Right. And it's okay, y'all. You don't have to start things immediately. It's okay to plan them out, but you do need to start taking that 10 or 15 minutes just for yourself. You would be amazed how 10 or 15 minutes of just sitting still, breathing, and just not even listening. You don't even have to, you can have some music on, but not even paying attention, but just sitting still will do for you, especially if you're getting ready. Oh, and especially if you're getting ready to make a big decision. You really need to do that.
Absolutely. No, and I'm so glad you said what you did about maintenance. Getting my nails done is the least relaxing thing that I do. I do it because I sit here with my hands and I have to it has to be done. It's not relaxing.
No.
And my toes? Definitely not relaxing for me. I am so glad you said that, because there's so much that we will have twisted in our minds.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one statistic that bothers me so much, and I know, you as a woman who talks about women in the business world, women-owned businesses are the fastest growing market. Women are starting businesses in droves, which I am thrilled. However, the majority of women-owned businesses never even pass 6 figures. The majority.
Yeah, and that's because we don't charge what we're worth.
Absolutely. I am That's it.
we are so caught up in being the nurturer, the carer, that it rolls over into our businesses. Was
Right.
I there? Yes. Because in our mind, we want to be to somebody else what nobody was to us. And so then stuff that we should charge, I'm just using this as an example, y'all. Stuff that we should charge $97 for, we're charging $10 and $15 because we want everybody to get an opportunity. But y'all, we have to start looking at you have to start looking at your years of being in the industry, your years of education, your years of getting ready for this. You have got to look at that. I'm worth, and then you got to start looking at your self-worth. And then now my favorite one when I do this class is, how much is your light bill? How much is your cell phone bill? Then you need a service that pay your cell phone bill. So if your cell phone bill is $100 a month, then you need something that costs $100 a month. So you know, at least if you sell one a month, you got your cell phone bill paid. And it's like if you start, I always say, if you start giving your money names, you start seeing different things happen with it. Because you're like, wait a minute, card note ain't got a name right now. Card note don't have the card note ain't being paid. Card note hasn't gotten what it needs yet. And so that's what we have to start to look at. And that helps us also with our pricing. And I'm not saying that you should be price gouging, because some people are overcharging for stuff too. But we have to be reasonable and we have to be intentional about what we're doing in that area.
You're absolutely right. And we need to keep pushing it higher. Because I want women-owned businesses not only to be the most in number, but the most in revenue.
Absolutely.
They deserve it. And we change ourselves terribly. You're absolutely right about that. Huge.
And then we tend to listen to the men that are in the industry trying to that especially the ones that degrade what we're doing. Y'all stop it. Listen to what they have to say, but take what you need. Don't let that be gospel, because a lot of times, just being real, a man is going to tell you what they want you to know, and then they're going to say it in such a demeaning manner that it's going to stifle you. Don't let somebody stifle you. You walk in the purpose that you know that you're supposed to walk in.
Absolutely. So tell me, what can we do starting today? Can me and our listeners, I mean, certainly we have a book to read and a 30-day journal to get, but give me a little nugget for today so we can start with an action plan right now.
The biggest thing that I would say, especially when we're dealing with the prayer of Jabez, we know that Jabez means pain. And a lot of times we can't move forward because we have not dealt with the pain. The first step is look back over your life and identify the pain. Identify what is holding you back or what has made you make the decisions that you make. When I did this exercise, I realized that I had suffered from verbal abuse. I didn't realize that I wasn't moving forward because in the back of my mind, I kept hearing people say, you too fat, you too short, you too dark, but you too light. And I used to get it both because I'm like that in between. I'm too light to be dark, but then I'm too dark to be light. So I used to catch it even when you went to certain, yeah, that's a real thing, y'all. I am a Black woman. Yes, I do. That is such a thing. But, or you're not smart enough, or you're too short. It's like you get all these da-da-da-da-da-das and da-da-da-da-da-das and you're not this. And then when you realize it and you identify it, you learn to turn it around, those negatives, and make it into your positive. So that's one thing that I want you, that's one of the biggest steps right there. Identify that pain and then turn it around and figure out, how do I turn this negative into a positive? Just like people will say, you real fat. I said, no, baby, I'm voluptuous and I'm sexy. Now what?
Yes.
So and then I'm sorry, y'all. I'm gonna give y'all two things. One, identify the pain, but two, do some mirror work. Look in that mirror and say, damn, girl, you look good. You the best thing that ever walked this earth. And yeah, sorry, y'all. I am a ministry, but that's the word I got away with. When my mama read it, she said, okay, because sometimes you got to shock yourself into doing what you have to do. I'm gonna tell this story and then I'm done. I told this to one of my students who I felt like was really living in herself. She was not showing who she really was. She's really smart, but she would hide behind a mask, literally a mask, and would come, and nobody else is wearing a mask but her. And I said, you know what? I need you to start doing some mirror work. And after about 2 or 3 weeks after doing it, I started seeing her light shine, and I started seeing her walk different. She walked with a different bounce. So sometimes you just got to start talking to yourself in the morning and motivating yourself, because if you start to say it enough, you start to believe it. And then when you start to believe it, people start to see it, because you start to act different, walk different, and talk different, and you're going to see things around you begin to flourish.
You are the first person, after literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interviews that I have been privileged to conduct, who has ever used the words mirror work. And I am like here for this. Oh my gosh, I've never heard this before. And you are opening my eyes. I'm blown away that
Oh my gosh.
I've never heard of mirror work, and I'm loving it.
Absolutely, because you have to start, Michael Jackson said, you got to start with the man in the mirror. You got to start with the woman in the mirror, because when you look in that mirror, a lot of times we never see who we are truly. We see the brokenness. We see what people have said negative about us, and then what we said negative about ourselves. That's who we see. Just like people that have bariatric surgery, they tell you all the time, when you look in the mirror, you could have lost 200 pounds. But when you look in the mirror, you still see that 300-pound you. You don't see the person that's lost the weight. You don't see the person that has changed. And so when you start to do that mirror work, you have to start seeing your true, authentic self, of who you want to be, not who people say that you are, but who you are as a person.
You are amazing. Boy, have you opened my eyes and that of our listeners. I am blown away. Blown away. For all of you, please, please run, do not walk. The Prayer of Jabez in the marketplace. There's a book, and there's also the 30-day journal, so you can get started. But I'm going to get started right after we sign off and pull out a mirror and say, oh my gosh, how did I not know this? Deborah Franklin Publishing.com. You will totally want to check her out, because I'm sure now that you met her, you love her like I do. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. You are always like a huge jolt of energy. Love that.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. And I am on all social media platforms as Deborah Franklin and Deborah Franklin Publishing as well.
Thank you so much for sending that in. Thanks a million. And I'm sure I will see you soon.
Awesome. Bye-bye.